Hey everybody, how you doing? Are you having a good summer? It's hot right here in Colorado right now. This is Dr. Heldman, TechTalk Education, and in this movie what I'd like to talk to you about is the next big thing to anticipate in computing. And the reason I'm doing this is so that you have an opportunity to maybe research and figure out where you can land in this new area and get a better job, make more money, who knows? Let's get started. It should be pretty interesting information. Well, so I was taking an accounting class. This had been years ago, 1994, and it was a really good class. I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot about accounting. I also learned I don't want to be an accountant. Anyway, the professor talked about a troika, and I was really interested in that word. And a troika is a sled that's drawn by 3 horses. It's a Russian word. And so the next big thing in computing is a troika. It's not just computing, it's also some other things. So it's quantum computing coupled with AI, coupled with cryptographic algorithms. Well, let's take a look at this and see what this is involved here. So there is an enormous divergence underway. I don't know if you've been keeping track, but we're looking for like AGI, artificial general intelligence, and then ASI, artificial big intelligence, like it's very knowledgeable and knows how to recreate itself, those kinds of things. And so across the globe, we've got all these engineers that are working on AI, and they want to try and put it into quantum computing, and there's a reason for that. At the same time, quantum technologies are poised. They're going to radically transform the landscape of cryptographic architectures because they'll be able to undo cryptographically signed documents in a matter of seconds rather than in a matter of minutes. And so people that are specialists in the cybersecurity arena are thinking about cryptographic algorithms. So it's a big, big thing, and there is a sea change coming, and I want to tell you about it. Now, I'd like to talk about Moore's Law. This is Gordon Moore. He became, I think he was the CEO of Intel at one time. This picture was taken in 1974. This is a very famous law. It says that as we go along, the number of transistors on microchips doubles every 2 years. And we are kind of there. We're at the very, very top. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, AMD is making some inroads. AWS has their processors and so forth. It's about 50 billion transistors that can be put on a chip. At some point, we're going to get to the point where we can no longer do that, and that is exactly where quantum computing kicks in. So this is flattening now. You can see how it's sort of beginning to flatten out. We'll make a little more progress, and certainly people like Intel and AMD are working on this, ARM, for example. But we're kind of there. I think that Moore's Law is pretty much toast right now. Now we've got to move on to some bigger and better things. Now there are 3 major forces that are colliding here. Quantum computing's absolute speed. It's just amazing how fast it can do things. AI's learning capability, and then cryptography's need for resilience. Those are the things that we have to worry about. Now this is a bit board that I created for my classroom years ago. It's been very effective in teaching binary. I'll just take a real quick minute with this. So this is a board, and you can see that I have 8 light switches mounted on here. Actually, our wood shop guy made this board for me because I have 0 wood shop skills. And then I mounted light switches on the front of this thing. Now you can see that we start counting from the right and going to the left. So on the right we have 0 points. Everything is based upon 2s. Why? Because we're dealing with binary. So 2, we're either on or off, 1 or 2 positions. So with this first switch, it's in the 0th position. So 2 to the 0 is 1. So if I were to flick this switch on, it would get 1 point. I go to the next one over. This is 2 to the 1th, so it's in the first position. Notice we're counting from 0, 0th position, first position, 2 to the 1th is 2, so if I flip this switch on, it would be worth 2 points. If I flipped on both of these switches and left the rest off, the entire thing would be 3 points. and we would read it as 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, and that's how you get to binary. The max that you can get out of this is 255 points. You can see for yourself how that works. And in this particular picture, I had a student a few years ago take it and wire it so that we could put LEDs on it, and you could flick a switch, plug it into the wall, flick a switch, and the lights would come on. So that was pretty cool. So here with the lights on, you can see that this is 2 squared, that's a value of 4, and 2 to the 5th is a value of 32. Add those up. This would be 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0 in binary. Now here's the thing. All of today's computers, all modern computers, with the exception of quantum computing, use binary. And it's pretty elaborate, but at the end of the day, all it is electrical signals going down the wire. The computer is able to interpret those signals, and it's just determining whether a transistor is on or off. So it's straight binary. Now, quantum computing doesn't do that. Quantum computing has the notion of bits. Each one of these light switches is called a bit. So there's 8 of them. 8 bits makes up a byte. 4 bits makes up a nibble, which you'll never hear anymore. We always use that as a joke when we're recording movies or whatever, but nobody's using the word nibble. But anyway, you get the idea here. But with a qubit, the thing is that we can have either a 0 or a 1 or somewhere in between, and this is based on the idea of superposition and entanglement in quantum mechanics. So we have this notion of, oh, it's going to be somewhere in here, we're just not sure where it's going to be. Now, we need to talk about a cryptographic algorithm that was invented by a guy named Peter Shor. He's a physicist. This is a picture from him in 1994. Super bright guy, very mathematical, of course. And he developed a quantum algorithm that effectively and efficiently factors large integers. Now, we're not talking about just regular integer numbers. We're talking about prime numbers. In another movie that I did, we found out that cryptographic algorithms take 2 prime numbers. They'll take a very, very large prime number and find its factors. Excuse me, let me back up. When we have a cryptographic algorithm that's using prime numbers, we take a large prime number and a large prime number, multiply them together, and get an enormous large prime number, because 2 primes multiplied together can only yield a prime. A prime number is a number that only can be divided by itself or by 1. This is the basis of cryptographic algorithms, and the idea is that the larger number we produce, the more secure we're going to be. And so when we're saying here that Peter Shor invented a quantum algorithm that worked with large integers, we're talking about prime numbers. Now, what this means for us is that if I have a quantum computer, there could be a chance that a quantum computer could take and factor. What does that mean? It means I can look at this large prime number, and just through matter of going through trial and error, billions and billions and trillions of times, I can finally discover those 2 numbers that, when multiplied together, made that super large prime number. Remember that it's a prime number, multiply them together, get a large prime number. That becomes the basis of cryptographic algorithms. And in the case of quantum, the thing that quantum brings to the table is the ability to factor those prime numbers much more quickly. So the idea here is that Shor's algorithm could turn factoring from a millennia-long problem, and they're not making that up. The machines that we currently have today would take hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years to figure out what those primes are. They'll never do it. So that's why the cryptographic algorithms that we have today that utilize these characteristics, like RSA, are very, very popular, because it's difficult to hack them. If we have a quantum computer, excuse me, I hit my keyboard accidentally. If we have a quantum computer, we can solve it in seconds rather than in millennia. So that's the thing that we're really interested in. And Shor's algorithm is one of the algorithms that's really taking shape inside the quantum world. Now, you're looking at an oscilloscope, and it's showing you a picture of a sine wave. And the thing that I want you to know about the sine wave is that you have a trough, and you have a peak, and you have a trough. So the period of the sine wave is from the trough to the peak, or the peak to the trough. We're talking about the period. That doesn't really make sense in terms of thinking about quantum computing, but the way that quantum computers work is there's 3 steps involved here. So first of all, we turn on the factor of numberings into period finding. Now the thing that you have to remember is that we have either a potential for a complete 0, a complete 1, or somewhere in between, and we do that by finding the period of wherever this particular electron is at this point. We use quantum computers to rapidly find the period, and then we finish off with classical math. So instead of brute forcing, like we would be doing, we put a computer to work to brute force a cryptographic algorithm, and we're wanting it to find those primes. Now we have a methodology using quantum computers where we can bust that down and get to it much more quickly. Shor's algorithm transforms the factoring problem into a much simpler one. Find the repeating pattern known as the period of a function. It's very basic, but the math is impressive. I'm sure you would agree. And if you go out and look this up, like Wikipedia has articles on it, it's all over the internet. It's a very, very popular thing in terms of quantum. So here's what I had imagined. I made a little film, and you take these 2 prime numbers and multiply them together, and you get this amazingly large prime number. And now I ask you to sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper and see if you can figure out what 2 prime numbers, when multiplied together, made this number. That's the point. And it could take classical computers millions of years to undo. That's why we're interested in quantum computing, partly because, yes, the fear is that we could undo typical cryptographic algorithms, but the other side of it is that we could create much, much stronger cryptographic algorithms. So we're going now from AI, from prediction to decision. So I'm changing steps here. I talked about cryptographic algorithms. Now I'm talking about AI. AI is amazing. It's headed into every part of your life. It's actually started, Microsoft has laid off some coders because they can use AI to create coding instead, that kind of a thing. So it's really in your life. I'm sure you use it every day. I love ChatGPT. I use it nearly every day. But now, what are we looking at? Well, when powered by machine learning, AI thrives on computational resources. I'm sure you've heard about all these companies building these enormous data centers to do all of this computational processing for machine learning. What's up with that? Well, the idea is pretty straightforward. We take a big blob of data, like a large piece of data, whatever that might be. Could be petabytes, zottabytes of data. It could be a lot of data. And we find out about that data. So the way that it works is we take the data and we essentially either cut it in half, thirds, quarters, whatever. We cut off a piece of that data and we train our algorithm. So we've got this machine learning algorithm and we train it on this piece of data. And then we use the rest of the data to test it. And there are some interim processes that certain machine learning models use. But the concept here is that we've got this large data and we sick the machine learning program on it and we let it figure things out and learn. Well, that's all fine, well, and good, except when we have very, very large problems with lots and lots of data, it's very difficult for computers today to do this work. Now, don't get me wrong, computers are doing a great job of it, but there are bigger, more gnarly problems to solve than conventional classical computing can solve using ML. And so there's a need for quantum computing. What are some of those needs? Well, we want the models to be able to learn faster, use more complex pattern recognition. Now, if you think about DNA, or you think about the chemical analysis of the world, for example, all of the chemistry that goes on, the atomic structure, quantum mechanics, different things like that. Even finances, if you think about the stock market, the New York Stock Exchange and all the others, NASDAQ and all of the others. Lots and lots and lots of data and lots of different points to think about. Really tough for humans to think about. Not so tough for ML to think about, but there's so much data, it's overwhelming, and it just takes a long, long time to get the ML model to train on this. So the next step up now is to marry AI with quantum computing so that we can get these things done a lot more quickly. Well, where would we use that? Well, we would use it in new drug discovery, for example. Pharmaceutical companies could make use of that. I would hope that naturopathic drug people would use this as well to discover good naturopathic drugs. Protein folding, financial modeling, things like that. So AI is very much being looked at as someplace where we can park it on a quantum computer. The other thing that we may not need as much of is we may not need these enormous data centers with all of these processors going full blast, just trying to crunch on this data. We might be able to get away with a little smaller footprint using quantum computers. So this is a very, very interesting paradigm. It's not solved yet. I'm just trying to tell you that people are working on that, and I would encourage you to get busy and work on it yourself, because the more you know about the troika here, the better off you're going to be in terms of positioning yourself for a future career, a well-paying career. Now let's talk about cryptography. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's a crisis and an opportunity. There are some people that are looking at cryptography, public key cryptography in particular, but there are lots of organizations that are looking at this crypto problem and trying to figure out a way that we can embed it into quantum computers. So today's encryption, like RSA, ECC, it would be vulnerable to quantum attacks. I saw a TED movie one time where this woman came out and she's like, yeah, don't worry about that, it's nonsense. I don't think it's nonsense. I think that this is something that is on the horizon. It's something you should be looking at, and it's called post-quantum cryptography, PQC, post-quantum cryptography. It's very, very interesting. Now, have you heard of the National Institute of Standards and Technology? It's called NIST. It's a U.S. federal department. They come out with all kinds of standards, but they're taking a hard look at PQC, and they invited a bunch of companies to submit their idea for how we would create these cryptographic algorithms on a quantum computer. Now, what's facilitating this ability to do this research, because if I'm a company, I can't afford a quantum computer. Unless I'm Google or Microsoft or IBM, there's no way I can afford a quantum computer, because there are so many things that are required to get it up and running and working. It takes a lot of special care and feeding. But what I can do is I can commoditize it so that I can allow you to get onto my quantum computer and do the work that you want to do. So this has really been very, very good, making these quantum computers that IBM owns and Google and others, commoditizing those in such a way that these people can begin to develop cryptographic algorithms working with quantum computers. And so what they did was they had a contest to see who can invent the best cryptographic algorithm for quantum computers. This is called post-quantum cryptography. The big winner was a company called Crystals. They have two that they submitted. These guys are in the top 4 here. So Crystals, and it's called Kyber with a K. They also had a runner-up submission called Dilithium, which is a pretty cool name, I think. And this is their logo. And I will put these links down in the notes, the show notes, so that you can go and look at these companies. A couple of the websites they're better at building cryptographic algorithms for quantum processors than they are writing HTML, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not bad-mouthing them at all. There's another one called Classic McEliece, and this is based off, I didn't do a lot of history research on the guy that invented this, but it's a mathematical algorithm, and there's a takeoff on this with this McEliece guy. I think he's long gone, but now they're taking this, what he did, and then beginning to push it into quantum computing. There's a thing called NTRU. These are all finalists in the NIST PQC competition, and then finally a company called Sabre. Okay, well, where is this all headed? So this convergence is going to revolutionize healthcare, finance, logistics, national security. I'm sure you can think of all the other things, manufacturing. I saw an article a while ago on robots. This woman had started out with a company making cars, and she said, when I first started here, there were like 300 people on the car assembly line, and there were like 17 robots, and now there's 400 robots and only a handful of people on the line. Guys, this is really, in one way, and I'm not trying to be crass about it, but it's a job protection thing. You have to stay ahead of this curve, no pun intended with the graphic there. You've got to stay ahead of this curve, because the people that are making the decisions and calling the shots and investing the billions and trillions of dollars required are gambling on the future, and you need to probably think about gambling on it as well. This is going to require a new kind of technologist, one who understands quantum mechanics, quantum computing, AI modeling, and cryptographic protocols. Now, if you're in IT, cybersecurity, data science, this is the time to definitely upskill your chops. Take courses, whether they're online or in college. I think you're going to be better off online if you're asking me, like a Coursera course or whatever. Because all of the big players have already put out there everything that they know. They want you to learn this. This isn't something that's hidden under a bushel somewhere. People want you to know about this. The courses are out there. They're inexpensive. You've just got to put in the effort. And if I'm being honest with you, it's not an easy game. Understanding why and how quantum works isn't the easiest thing in the world. Truthfully, I don't know if anybody really understands everything about how quantum works, with the exception of God. But it is a difficult technology, and it's something that you're going to have to work at to be able to figure out why this is working this way, how it's working this way. You know, maybe join a couple of use groups somewhere that go and talk about this stuff. But there's no shortage of people that want to talk about it. It's just that I fear that the technology is too overpowering, and we tend to want to bury our heads in the sand. And honestly, if you're in IT, you cannot do that. This is the time now to put that sticky note on your cabinet in the bathroom to remind yourself you need to stay ahead of this curve, because it's coming at you. These domains are not siloed, and they are merging. So that's my message with this particular movie. Now, how do you prepare? First thing you need to do, learn Python. The Python programming language has been extended everywhere. It's very powerful. It is the lingua franca, as they say, for ML, machine learning and AI. And it has been ported over to quantum computing language called Qiskit. So this is something that you need to know. You'll need to learn Python. If you don't like coding or you don't know coding, Python's actually an easy walk in the park. It can get really extensive, of course, but it's a good language to learn. It's good to know. It's good to have on your resume. Then turn around and enroll in an IBM quantum course and learn how to use Qiskit. All of this is available online to you. You can go in and create a free account on the IBM Quantum website, and you can have access to Qiskit and begin to learn this stuff. You also probably want to know about a couple of pretty difficult AI frameworks. They both use Python. One's called TensorFlow. This was invented by Google, but it's out there in the wild now. Everybody and their dog is using TensorFlow. And then another one is called PyTorch. And then I think it's really important that you stay in touch with NIST. Also, the International Association of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the IEEE, has done a lot of work and a lot of publishing of documents on quantum. They're very future focused on this, so they would be a good one to look at as well. Now, what do you think? Was I able to help you? I hope so. This is the same exact thing that I told kids for 20 years in a classroom. Look, man, this is coming your way. You need to know this. If you're serious about your career in IT and you want to make steps, you want to move forward, you don't want to just be, help desk or servers or whatever, you want to move forward and get into this pretty fast-paced arena, you need to put in the effort to learn this. Now, if you found this video helpful, I would love it if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it with others, tell others about it. I am actively trying to grow the channel. I'm not so much focused on monetization. I just enjoy helping people understand these technologies. And you're welcome to drop a comment. For example, what excites you or what concerns do you have about this particular convergence? I would love to know what your thoughts are. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you later. You have an awesome, awesome day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.